Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association and presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We have a great show for you today as we kick off the month of June. We have Karl Kilb and Eddie Cullen. They are two entrepreneurs from New York City that are doing all kinds of cool things at the intersection of faith and finance. We're going to have a great conversation with these gentlemen today. How you guys doing?
Great, John. Thanks for having us.
We're doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Well, it's an honor. So let's start with a prayer, shall we? Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Justin, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Well, guys, this is great. I've seen you guys around for a few years in the city, and you're always super positive and doing good stuff. And I thought it would be a good chance to share some of that good stuff with our audience today. So we're going to jump right in. Eddie, why don't you go first? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you've done, and then want our audience to know about you.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Thanks for having us on the podcast. So I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I'm from Manhattan, from the Bronx. I've been Catholic educated my whole life, and faith has been a big part of who I am. Not just in prayer, but also in the business world. So I've been Jesuit educated mostly my whole life. Haven't been able to escape the Jesuits. I've been, went to Xavier High School, Fordham University. Did the Jesuit Volunteer Corps after college. So I lived on $85 a month, working and living in Phoenix at Brophy Prep. Some notable alumni from that school include, I think John McCain's grandsons and nephews, to Devin Allen, who is an Olympic sprinter and hurdler at the moment. And then the last 10 years, I've been working in early stage tech. Working in tech, kind of putting my faith into it, and tried to do my best to integrate both those worlds. So that's a little bit of me in a nutshell. So I'm kind of this, I like to say, mutated teacher, Catholic entrepreneur, who really tries to bring all those worlds together. And I met Karl about 10 years ago, and excited about all the stuff that we're accomplishing today.
All kinds of layers, Eddie. Looking forward to exploring that thoroughly today. And we have Karl Kilb. Karl, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, John. I'm a native New Yorker as well, born and raised in the Bronx, Catholic school educated. My Catholic faith has always been a big part of everything that I do, including all of my endeavors in the tech world. Looking forward to talking about that. Started as a broadcaster in the early days, worked at a bunch of TV and radio stations, went to law school at night at a great Jesuit law school, Fordham Law School. I've been very involved with Fordham since then. I started their entrepreneurial law program about 10 years ago and still actively teach there, and spent most of my career as a lawyer at Bloomberg. I was an early pioneer at Bloomberg, hired by Mike Bloomberg over 30 years ago. And I was the company's first general counsel and chief compliance officer, and built out all kinds of amazing things there, data aggregation, analytics, electronic trading, order routing, all types of multimedia businesses. Left Bloomberg in 2014. Since then, I've been involved in some phenomenal entrepreneurial pursuits, many of them with Eddie, and many of them involving our Catholic faith, and really excited to be talking about them today.
Outstanding. Well, you both have incredible backgrounds, so we're grateful to have you on. I know we're going to learn a lot in this conversation. So I want to explore a little bit about your respective faith lives. You mentioned the Jesuit affiliation, Catholic education, all that. That's good stuff. But on a personal level, and Karl, maybe we could just stick with you on this one. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Lord. What does your faith mean to you on a personal level?
Sure. Well, I was extremely fortunate to be raised by Catholic parents who always had faith as a huge part of their lives, and instilled that in each of the 5 children. I'm the oldest of 5. We all went to Catholic school. I was proud to be an altar boy. Tried to serve my church and my school in any way that I possibly could, and always thought that Catholic values should be at the center of everything that we do, including in the business world. Frankly, if we all treated each other with a sense of fairness and reasonableness, imagine what we could all achieve collectively working together. And I'm also just a big believer in the Catholic Church leveraging new technology. So as a lifetime technologist and also a lifetime practicing Catholic, I think those two things should come together. And I often joke, if the original apostles had had social media, I'm sure they would have used it because they wanted to spread the good news any way that they can. And that's exactly what Eddie and I are trying to do here. We're leveraging tech to help educate, evangelize, and support Catholics in all ways.
Yeah, I love how you laid that out. I mean, imagine if St. Paul had Twitter. I mean, he could have saved the fee of a Phoenician pilot taking them from one side of the Mediterranean to the other. It would have been a lot more convenient.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. You can still cover a lot of ground on foot, but you can cover a lot more on social media.
Amen. Well said, Karl. And Eddie Cullen, tell us a little bit about your faith journey.
Yeah, so my faith journey, I think, got a little bit started later in life. I think I do come from a Catholic family, but in terms of practicing, I think, when I did the volunteer corps right after school, I got a chance to live and work with the Marist College Brothers in Australia. And I think it just became kind of a faith in action. I found myself heading to church and heading to faith-based events more and more through time. And I think also a joy has been getting married. And I think we've talked about this before, John, in the past, is, seeing her convert and seeing her actually take classes and see her viewpoints change over the last year or so. Becoming a Catholic has been a joy for me. So really it's become, I think over time, it's gotten interesting for me. I think it went in layers where I discovered my faith through my youth. Then I got a chance to go to mass and live it and practice it. And then I think now later, as I get older, I've become more fascinated and excited about the saints and the human aspects of people who live their faith, whether it's St. Thomas Aquinas or Blessed Carlo Acutis, or it's St. Ignatius, or whoever, among the saints. I think they've had some tough lives. So I think when I have a struggle during the day, it's easy for me to turn to the saints. It's easy to turn to my faith in prayer. And I always say this to people. You get the question like, well, why are you religious? And I go, well, I think it's a positive blueprint on how to treat people. For me, it's not only inward faith and prayer, but how we treat people and go about our daily lives. Can we bring that evangelization to folks just by, simply maybe opening up a door or saying thank you, or, doing things that lend what Jesus, I think, taught to some of the apostles, right? Just use your faith in action and do it as a way of practice. And that's where it's become, great for me, especially as I start to build these ventures with Karl and get to meet wonderful folks like yourself and get engaged with all the different business entrepreneurs in the Catholic world.
The Jesuits have this great challenge to people to be a man for others, and also the importance and centrality of good works to accompany your faith. And I get the sense that that's very important to each of you. I mean, I feel like, a life of prayer, a life of, reverence to the Lord, that's important to you. That's a big part of who you are. But you really like to put this stuff into action, right? I mean, I get the sense that that's one of the things that drives both you guys, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, each of us Catholic school educated, and I've had 3 children now go through Catholic school. And one of the things we keep coming back to is it's so important to have those essential beliefs taught to everyone. But in today's world, everybody is starting to look to other places for their lessons. So, the textbooks that I read back in the 70s may be very boring to students of today. So how do you still instill these great Catholic values, but kind of in a way that meets the needs of the appetite of today's student? And that's where we went forward, with our Blessed Carlo Acutis game, and of course also our Crescite token we'll talk about, and what we're trying to do there with social impact investing.
I love that, Karl. Eddie, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's, we always hear this, I think, abstract term of the Magus. The Jesuits are good with their Latin analogies, right? And they try to put them out there. But for me, I think it's, and this is a common, I think, analogy as well, is I think living in the comparative is better than the superlative. So I think Karl and I strive to be better every day. We live in the ER, greater, better, rather than best or greatest. Because I think once you consider yourself that, you've kind of reached your ceiling. So much like Jesus and the apostles, every day just get better, talk to someone new every day, further the mission, and yeah, live it as kind of a, on your sleeve rather than hide behind, your faith, right? I appreciate the things that we're doing, but when you look at, especially the mediums of today, a lot of people resonate with video games or social media or TikTok, or, I'm sure Moses would have tweeted out about parting the Red Sea, right? I think we see that, all the time. We see that funny picture on LinkedIn all the time, right? So I think for me, it's being a practice of faith, but also I think the Jesuits would appreciate this, is the new frontiers. I don't think the Catholic Church should be behind on catching up on technology. We should be ahead. We've always been leaders in this world. Why can't we be leaders now? Why do we have to wait for a certain piece of AI to come out or blockchain technology? Why can't we be the first ones there, right? Like, why can't we be the ones that lead, just like we've led in the past, right? And I think that's important to me. And I've learned that from the Jesuits, but I've also learned, how to work with the poor from the Franciscans, or I've learned from the Dominicans, and I've learned from all different, parts of the Catholic Church. I think for me, I've just been lucky to go through Jesuit schools, but I found joy getting to know every, part of the church.
So good. And Eddie, it's clear those experiences have really formed you and made you the leader you are. So we appreciate you sharing those. Acts of the Apostles tells us that the original apostles and the first generation of Christians went out two by two. And that's certainly how you guys are. I always see you together. You're clearly close collaborators. You fly in formation. How did your relationship begin? How did you guys get hooked up?
Yeah, it's amazing. Eddie and I have known each other over 10 years. And it was really through the New York City entrepreneurial space. And I came upon Eddie when he was at a place called Grand Central Tech. And knowing that he was a lifetime Jesuit educated guy and a Fordham guy, as I am for Fordham Law School, made me instantly, before I even got to know Eddie, feel that he's going to be a good guy. and then obviously, as I got to know Eddie, I saw that was the absolute truth. But, finding people in business that, have good, solid morals, I mean, it's a key. And we hit it off right away.
And Eddie, what were your first impressions of Karl?
Yeah, I same thing, right? 10 years ago, you got to think, we've only had smartphones really since 2007. So I think the New York tech scene was really starting to take off around 2011, 2012, 2013, around that time. And, I was at Grand Central Tech, and a number of people in the Fordham community were like, you have to meet this guy, Karl Kilb. I'm like, who's that? Right. And like, you should talk to him. He's got a lifetime of experience building new technologies, doing things that, if it hasn't been on the market, you got to figure it out. Right. Like, and I think that's what gravitated to me is, okay, some innovation requires a level of faith, right? We're on the Faith and Finance Forum. Innovation is faith driven. You have to have faith that you're going to be able to get things done when things haven't been done before. And you have to have some sort of faith in that. And I think Karl, what gravitated me to is, look, and he's, more power to him, because I think I'm a little bit more hot-headed. I get a little upset or angry, and Karl has a little bit more of, I think, matter-of-fact demeanor, right? And that's a good thing, right? Because faith, innovation can be tough. And I know you're an innovator, John, too. It's like one of those things where if you're building something that hasn't been done before, what do you rely on? You can only rely on past experiences. You can only really rely on your matter-of-fact interfaith. You can only rely on those sort of things. So I immediately gravitated to Karl, and I think we have similar beliefs and moral systems and different skill sets, and I think that matches for a good team, right? I think, if I come across and don't understand how to solve something, maybe Karl does, and vice versa. And the good part of our partnership is, I think, it evolved over time. We really did start off, for the first 8 years as friends, and we're like, you know what? This new blockchain technology, decentralized finance, this is a new frontier, a new oasis. Are we going to know everything? Probably not. But do we think we can attempt to do that? And I think Karl was the right guy. So I think that we've been able to navigate a world that is unknown. And being able to navigate that in faith is important. And that's how I've gotten to know Karl over the last 10 years, that when things are going well, we still work hard. When things are tough, you face it, just like Jesus would, right? So I think, I've been able to learn a lot from him, but also collaborate with him. And we've been lucky to see a little bit of growth over the last few years. And I think a lot of that is driven by our faith. Can we put the church first? And I think people are blown away by that, right? Like, we came out with a game called a Cutest Game. Wow. They're trying to be the first ones to build a game that uses Unreal Engine with blockchain. They're not waiting for, Fortnite to go forward, right? They're waiting for, to do their own spin on it, on faith. And I think that takes a gravitas of a type of person. I think Karl is that. So.
Well, your friendship and fraternity inspires all of us. And, we love that you have built this bond and you're working together. I'm reminded of the reflection that St. Paul gave us toward the end of his life, that only Luke is with me. There seems to be this, kind of tradition of brothers, two by two, again, going out to change the world, just like you guys are doing. And it's a really beautiful thing. I want to tap into your professional backgrounds for just a second. Karl, you were involved at Bloomberg at the beginning. I think you indicated hired by Michael Bloomberg, helped build that globally recognized brand. Any reflections or anecdotes from that era? I mean, that sounds like a really interesting time.
Oh, sure, endless ones. More than could take up your whole hour. But I'll keep it tight, in true broadcast style. Any time you're innovating, as Eddie referenced, you need faith and you need hard work and determination and kind of a relentless spirit. And those are certainly all things that we had at Bloomberg in the early days. We were really figuring it out as we went along. Remember when I joined Bloomberg more than 30 years ago, I had a background in traditional broadcasting, and I saw where the world was going with what we'll call data on demand. I mean, think about it. In the pre-90s, people were very passive consumers of media. You would watch the show that was on the channel. You didn't have this ability to kind of bring up data on demand. It was the years before the internet. So in so many ways, Bloomberg pioneered those concepts. You want to know what a stock price is? You type in the ticker on the Bloomberg terminal and you get the price. That whole data on demand tied to news and analytics, it was just incredibly, incredibly innovative. So for me as a young lawyer, being able to couple my broadcast background with my legal skill set and really understand how the financial markets were evolving, it was absolutely the perfect place to work. And I was extremely blessed to also meet my wife at Bloomberg. So can't get much better than that. I had a great career and met my wife and life partner at Bloomberg. So great run there. And 22 years went by in a blink. That's when you know you're having a good time.
Hey, man, well said. And Eddie, tapping into your background, there's a lot there, but I'd love to be able to focus a little bit on some of the, work you did in the church, which I know was so just formative for you and such a big part of who you are. What were some of the highlights that stick out from your time serving the church in Arizona and other places around the world?
Yeah, so I came out of college and I wanted to serve in some capacity. I was either to volunteer or join the military. And I said, you know what, I think I would probably be better suited volunteering. And the story is pretty interesting. I was actually supposed to get stationed for prison ministry in San Diego. So I was supposed to go to a prison, work with youth gang members, live in San Diego and do that. And then unfortunately, I think the organization just was not taking on a Jesuit volunteer after I was already assigned. And they said, okay, you're now going to go to Brophy Prep in Phoenix. So God had a path for me to go work with students and then also work with, homeless folks and work with people on the border. So I was there for about a year. And then I was hired on full time by Brophy to lead immersion trip programs, teach understanding Catholic Christianity, teach religious studies. And that was almost 15 years ago now, right? So I did that early in my career and then came back and never thought I would get into entrepreneurship or be a technology entrepreneur. I think that's just the way God writes things sometimes. You never know where you're going to go. He's like, well, but you're actually going to go this way. I think we all know the Jonah story, right? It's, I came back and ended up being involved in early stage tech as I got to meet two fellow Jesuit high school alumni who had started an accelerator at a Jesuit high school for interns. And they said, hey, we're going to open up a bigger technology accelerator. Do you want to come work with us? And I said, sure. And at that time, I just started working with the Fordham University Foundry, started to go down the entrepreneurial route, started to blend my work with schools and with that. And then, the rest is history. Over the last 10 years, I've been involved anywhere from running technology accelerators to starting consulting companies to now really putting my foot down with Karl and saying, you know what, I think we can build an organization that can really focus on faith-based values and technology. I've been working a lot with Fortune 500 companies. I've been working a lot with, organizations out on the West Coast. And I just said, why can't I just focus on faith and technology? And I think that'll give me the most happiness. And I think I have been happy after a lot of entrepreneurial successes and trust me, a lot of entrepreneurial failures. I think there's been this pedigree of, okay, this is great. I can combine both worlds and be proud about that, not hide behind the fact that I am proud of it. Right. And I think that's important. So yeah, it's been a great ride so far. I'm 36 now. I like to think some people think I look 25, which is great. It's deceptive. But I've been really early stage tech, really learned from a lot of great people. And I've learned from those people and implemented it in my own life. So it's really early stage technology, really kind of have dealt with bringing that love now to the church and church-oriented technologies and missions.
And let's dive deep on interface of technology and faith, which I know is a big part of what you guys are all about. Why is it so important that the church utilize modern technology to pursue its mission?
When you think, historically, the Catholic Church was very often at the center of science and technology. I mean, you go back through all the centuries, you could find many innovations that were tied to the Catholic Church. In fact, Eddie and I, through our company Crescente, were really proud to sponsor a priest speaking about Catholic faith and technology at, believe it or not, the world's first Catholic crypto conference last November. And we actually had a priest named Father Andrew Pinsent, who's based in the UK, who's not only a super learned theologian, but physics, all kinds of sciences, has all kinds of phenomenal background. And why not in this day and age have a Catholic viewpoint in the tech space and leverage tech to help educate and evangelize? It really makes perfect sense. So we see these things as really very closely tied together. Technology and finance are not inherently good or bad. It's how you use them. So having those Catholic values instilled in how you use tech and finance, we think is crucial.
Eddie, what would you add?
Yeah, very similar, right? We can go back centuries and look at famous, Catholic folks in the church, right? You think about the Gregorian calendar, right? That's one of them. You can start thinking about, astronomy. The Vatican Observatory is run by, which I'm happy to, say is by Jesuits, right? Like you can go through, Chardin, right? Like you can go through thousands of instances throughout history where priests and faithful individuals have led the discovery and creation of new technological inventions. And I think science and technology is just a byproduct of God, right? God has founded this and we use it as a way to further his presence on this earth, right? And I think technology, we've always seen ourselves in this leadership position. And I think we're getting, I know Karl always talks about Web 0, right? With the Bloomberg terminal and like Bloomberg Times, when things started first come, then we had Web 1.0, Web 2.0. Now you start looking about Web 3.0. And I think as humans, we're getting used to these cycles. So now that we're getting used to these cycles, I think it's critical that the church uses these mediums as tools of evangelization, tools of ways to spread the faith. And I don't think it's mutually exclusive to do well and have faith in the things that you're doing, right? And I'd much rather, if kids are going to play video games rather than Grand Theft Auto, like have them play a game based on Catholic virtues and realities, and we have endless stories of saints that we can share. And look, I think we're starting to see that a little bit more and more today, right? Like, I mean, there's a movie coming out about Padre Pio, right? I think you start thinking about The Mission and Robert De Niro. That movie was phenomenal. We have so many great stories that I think need to be told. And why not use technology mediums to share those stories? And not only that, we could use it for donations and fundraising. I think COVID was, I like to call it the great accelerant. I don't think COVID was the great deterrence. I think it accelerated a lot of things that were going to happen. And now when you go to church, it cracks me up. You'll see QR codes for donations. You'll see people trying to leverage tech. I mean, I remember the Catholic Crypto Conference, which was great with Matt Pinto, right? Like we were doing sessions on DAOs, on canon law. Like it's fun, right? Like, and I think exploring these things are okay. I don't think we need to be scared of them. I think we need to embrace them and remember that they're tools, just like, and I think Father Ian says this, who we work with a lot, is, God knew these technologies were going to be here, right? He knew they were going to be here at this moment in time, or else, he wouldn't be God, right? So he knows that they're here. So why don't we use them in a way that's practical? And I always go back to Carlo Acutis, 9 years old, programming prodigy, categorically put all the Eucharistic miracles on a website and, use the internet in a way for evangelization. So I think it's important the church embrace these technologies and that the church, look at them as beneficial and tools of of substance for furthering the faith rather than be scared of them.
So Eddie, walk us through the outline of the various companies, projects, initiatives that you and Karl are driving to pursue the vision that you just laid out.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll talk about one, and I'm sure Karl has a few others too. I'll talk about maybe the token that we have, which I think is important, and what the word Crescite means. So Crescite, our company, it's in the book of Genesis. You know, it means to increase and grow. And basically when Adam touches God's hand on the Sistine Chapel with the two fingers, you know, that's et Crescite, right? So it's a play on words. Not only is it in the book of Genesis, but in blockchain, you have what's called the Genesis block. So the first block is actually named the Genesis block. So we can already see faith being integrated into the blockchain world. So we came up with the name Crescite for that exact reason. And the origin of our story is, you know, we really were focused on a number of different things in the blockchain space. And as we spoke to more and more people, we came to the realization that everyone did want a token that was representative, almost as a membership within a faith community where we could all work on projects and come together. And we actually do have the Crescite token. It is a token. It is a blockchain token. I think, you know, without going too much down the weeds of the technology, you know, you have Bitcoin, you have Ether, you have all these different tokens, and we have the Crescite token, which is designed to bring our entire faith community together globally. You know, and we launched the token Christmas of last year, which we're excited about. I think a great time to launch it. You know, and we launched it Christmas of last year, and we're seeing some good growth with it. You know, we have, you know, upwards to 1,000 token holders. We're seeing people across different faiths and different regions come in and leverage the token. And the token is really for, you know, the use cases for a number of different things. And I'm sure Karl's going to talk about one of them in a second. If I know, I'm going to guess what he's going to talk about. But we have a number of different mediums, from working with real estate and using the token to maybe further the build out of homeless shelters and residential facilities and commercial facilities to, working with churches and donating to churches. Another thing we're coming up with very shortly is a first responders sweepstakes. So if you're a first responder, you can sign up and just get given a token. So the token has real value. It's listed on a few exchanges, but we're still very young and very lucky to have seen some success with it. And our token is built on what's called the XDC network. So it is a blockchain technology. Think of it as like a modern day Amazon Web Services, where we use it as the tech that we build on. And Crescite has grown, and we've been very grateful for it. So that's one of the things that we work on. That's a core. And maybe I'll let Karl talk about, one of the other projects we have going on.
Go ahead, Karl.
Sure.
What else you got?
Sure. Thanks, Eddie. So the many uses of the Crescite token include being the in-game currency of the Akutis game. And just, quick background on the Akutis game, last summer, Eddie and I thinking about, how could you really use tech to educate and evangelize and also, frankly, have some fun? And having seen a lot of kids, including my three, play some video games during COVID, it just seemed natural to have a video game with Catholic themes. And the perfect person to name it after was Blessed Carlo Acutis, because he was all about using technology to further faith. And we were really blessed that Eddie actually traveled to Assisi and saw where Blessed Carlo was entombed last summer, and really got incredible thoughts on how to further the game. So the game has been in development since late last year. And it's just amazing to think about. Any game, requires great tech, and we have spectacular tech using the Unreal platform, which is the same platform that all the most famous games are on. But games also need great characters and storylines. And frankly, you cannot have any better characters and storylines than the real life saints. The lives that these saints lived, across the board, not easy, all kinds of challenges, all types of impediments to getting where they needed to be, and many stories of overcoming all of those things and then strengthening faith in the process. And we think it's important, for young people to realize, there are hundreds, thousands of saints, right? It's not, a lot of times in life you hear about the most popular of anything, right? So there are probably 25 to 50 saints that we could all rattle off. But there are hundreds, even thousands of saints through the centuries, including many modern saints. People like, Saint Pope John Paul II or Mother Teresa. or going back a couple of centuries, Mother Seton, and understanding her role in the formation of Catholic churches, so and schools. So these things are just so crucial for people to understand. And then young people like to learn interactively, so actually going on missions in the video game and kind of searching through all types of places to get to the nuts and bolts of the lives of the saints. It's admittedly, even for somebody my age, more exciting than turning a textbook page, right? So we see this as ideal not just for gamers, people that love games, but we also see it as ideal for education. And you think about all the gamers that are in high school. Imagine them learning this way as opposed to just learning, old traditional ways. And then another company we're involved in is in the cybersecurity identity verification space. That's called MC Identity Solutions. And basically, again, a tech that's kind of inherently good, making sure that your identity is secure, making sure that you can conduct your life, transact business, do things without people stealing your identity, masquerading as you, wreaking all kinds of havoc on your life. So really proud to be working with Eddie on these technologies, which, again, they're faith-based and inherently good.
Wow, so much to cover here, but I guess we'll start here. I want to learn a little bit more about the educational potential of the technology. I mean, I think back to my own experience in high school. I definitely would go for the Nintendo over the textbook. That sounds like a good choice. I guess my only question is, do we have data or other evidence that suggests that the retention of that learning is equal or superior utilizing a technology like gaming as opposed to the traditional, textbook approach?
Yeah, certainly what we're seeing, and we're talking to a lot of educators at the high school level, especially seems to be a real sweet spot for all boys Catholic high schools. Many of them have gaming clubs. And I can't tell you how many people have told me, well, the way to learn now is to watch a YouTube video, or the way to learn now is to interactively do something online. And the interaction of finding elements of a saint's life through these in-game missions, it's an interaction that is going to leave a lasting impact on the video game user, as opposed to, please turn to page 90 and read the third paragraph. So, and Eddie's got experience in education as well, not just as a student, but as an educator. So some more thoughts from you, Eddie.
Yeah, I taught religious studies early in my career. And, I think about even all of our childhoods, right? We didn't have iPads when we were born. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have smartphones. So the next generation or the current generation is probably the first ever to have this at birth and then continuing on, right? So, now it's common that nowadays you might get exposure to an iPad or an iPhone at a very young age. Whether you have one or not is different, but you'll at least know they exist, right? And like whether they're out there. And I think about my own self, selfishly, I just want to play this game myself, right? Like I want to, for me, I think about all the saint stories that I didn't learn until later in life, right? I didn't learn until more recently, the last few years. I thought it would have been great if 10, 12 years old, I could have been playing a game where I found out that, wow, Pope John Paul II was actually ordained in a basement, during World War II, right? Trying to escape, Nazi Germany, running around, right? And that's a powerful story. Or you think about Pedro Arrupe surviving Hiroshima, or, you could go on for days, right? Elizabeth Ann Seton and her troubles of her husband passing away. So there's just so many intricate stories that I think sometimes we put the saints on a pedestal, which we should, but they have real stories. They have real, and I don't think, and Karl says this all the time, I don't think we can make these stories up if we tried, right? Like some of these stories are fascinating. And I think if we can give educational opportunities that, okay, I might not retain this if I read this in a textbook, but maybe if I play this game for 5 minutes, okay, now I have a familiar understanding of the story of Saint Kateri, and I have a familiar of a story of the Little Way or Padre Pio, and I think that's important, right? And I think for me, we have to use these mediums, and we're proud to say the first ever Unreal Engine blockchain-based video game is a Catholic video game, right? And that serves to, we're not the second, we're not the third, we're the first, right? And that's awesome, right? And I think being the first, I think people were a little blown away by it. And I think those are the reactions we got, right? Carl, like, oh, is this going to be another religious video game that, is made of stick figures and you walk around and it's boring? And people saw the video of the game and played it a little bit, like, wow, this is legitimate. Like, this is a real game. This is a real media platform. And not just to us. I get excited when I see movies like Padre Pio, and I see more faith, and I see, all different sorts of real media mediums coming out, leveraging our faith, in a professional and exciting way. And I think we've accomplished that with Acutus from the education standpoint.
I think you're onto something. I mean, Nintendo's making a big push right now about it. It's an anniversary milestone. Maybe it's like 30 or 40 years or something of Zelda, that franchise. And I was just thinking to myself the other day, hearing about this. I do not play anymore, but 25 years ago, Zelda was a big part of my life, and I could probably recall like every step of the main character Link in his adventure through the Zelda game, because I played all those and I played them religiously. And you're right, I kept all of that. I could probably tell you every step of every Zelda game, because it was such a deep immersion for me. Not so sure the textbooks I was reading in 8th grade I could do the same. Very interesting. You might be onto something here. What's the timeline on the video game? When will this be available to the consumer?
Sure. So people can see what I guess you'd call a trailer or a sizzle reel right now. We already have those out there, and they show you what the quality of the game is, and some of the initial characters, and of course the main character is Blessed Carlo Acutis. The game itself in the fall will have some kind of a beta version out there for people to start playing with, and it's available now for pre-order on the acutisgame.com website, and you could also check us out on Faith Games and on Crescite. And we encourage people to pre-order now, because there will be all kinds of special benefits that will associate with those early purchasers, including the ability to get access to a game later this year to start playing with the early versions of it.
This is so exciting. And do you see this as kind of like I guess the first of many video games along these lines? Do you see potential for other products similar to this?
I was going to say, and I'm sure Carl has a comment too as well on the other verticals that we have within Faith Games. What I was going to mention is for Acutis, the hope is that eventually we can actually have people come up with their own elements to the story, and then they're just submitting it to us, right? If a group of students want to develop their own portion of the 40 martyrs in England, they can create that and then submit it to us for approval into the game. So it's awesome. SDKs, it's APIs, it's and that's another educational standpoint. Not only learning about the saints, we're hopeful that we can also teach students how to use blockchain technology or code, or build things that then can be really seen within the game. And the cool part outside of that, even though the alpha version's coming, and when I say more games, it's an open universe, so that means we can build into it over time. So if we want to build a church into it, and you want to donate tokens to that church within the game, that's a real donation. That's real money, right? And that's real donation opportunities for that organization. So it is almost kind of an open world universe that also has real world assets and elements to it, which is why we love blockchain, right? So yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, Carl, if you have any comment on the other parts of Faith Games, but yeah, Acutis is going to be an open world universe that we hope everyone can contribute to over time.
Yes, and in addition to video games, we actually even have some content under the brand name Meta Catholic. And the Meta Catholic content, for example, includes virtual reality content that you would see using like an Oculus headset. And just a really quick anecdote, Eddie and I were really fortunate to be at Seek, the major Catholic conference in St. Louis in January, and just met so many spectacular people. And one of the ones we're working with, Father Ian Van Usen, was actually the one that coined the phrase Meta Catholic. And to see so many priests and nuns and students and others putting on an Oculus headset and actually experiencing the crucifixion in a way that they never could have conceived of. And, as amazing as you may think it is to read the passages that we read year after year, there's something about actually feeling like you're sitting at the foot of the cross and experiencing the stations of the cross in a way that people couldn't have conceived of until fairly recently. And I think, certainly when I put the headset on, what's going to happen, but you're now feeling it in the deepest of ways and knowing it's a foregone conclusion it's going to happen. You cannot change it, but it's meant to be. And you know what the outcome is going to be, but it really kind of hammers home the point of just how unbelievable the moment is, in a way that I just don't think paper and pen can do.
Well, and frankly, that's the starting point of all great historical media. I think one of the most successful movies in all time, Titanic, that was so wildly successful. You knew it was going to happen. You knew that ship was going down and that a lot of people were going to die, sadly, but it didn't make it different. I mean, to be able to step onto that ship with those actors and experience it was so immersive. Karl, you're saying this technology takes that to the next level.
It really does. It does take it to the next level. And it just kind of underscores what we say all along. Tech is not inherently good or bad. It's how you use it. So having a metaverse designed for Catholics, having a video game, the Acutus game, designed for Catholics to really focus on the saints so that people see the saints throughout their journey in a really interactive way. Having a token that enables blockchain Web3 technology to be used for faith-based initiatives. These are all things that to us as practicing Catholics and technologists make perfect sense.
I love it. Nettie, I want to go back to something you said about blockchain. I know that you guys love blockchain, and we do have members of our audience that hear that term, they don't know what it means. You know what I mean? Like they don't have the kind of experience, the kind of immersion and just excitement around it like you do. Eddie, give us kind of a blockchain 101. Why are you so bullish on that technology, and why should our audience know more about it?
Yeah, and I'll give some simple analogies, which I think are very helpful. Blockchain is the first time we can prove ownership on the internet. So we can prove ownership now, right? We can prove that John owns something, Karl owns something, I own something. At the end of the day, that's what it is, right? It's a digital ledger or a database that helps prove ownership. It's also more secure. So think about, this is the analogy I use everywhere I go. The cookie analogy, there's a cookie in a cookie jar. If I went to go steal that cookie alone, I could take it and run. That's our current data systems, single point of failure. Not secure, could be attacked by hackers and we wouldn't know. That's kind of our current systems. Now, blockchain, if I went and stole that cookie and there was 100 people in the room, they're going to tell me not to take that cookie, right? And that's kind of blockchain technology, meaning there are people that can see that database and see the ledger. So it makes it a little bit safer, and I think, there's also some key terms that we've heard, right? And I want to dispel some myths. So when we hear the words NFT, I think people think of cartoons and spaceships and basketballs. Non-fungible tokens are just a proof of concept for smart contracts. So if you, John, Karl, and us three wanted to have a paper agreement, it might take a little bit of time to go back and forth and do that transaction. Where a smart contract, if I send you money, John, and you go to send me a product, but you never send me the product, then the money would automatically go back, right? So it's really about being the first time we can prove ownership on the internet. I always say this as well. The modern smartphone came out in 2007. That's 16 years. To put it in perspective, the church has been around for about 2,000 years, right? So it's not a long time, and we're just now understanding how to use blockchain technology. And it's funny, I always challenge people this is go back to 1994, 1995 and watch videos on the internet, right? I remember Brian Gumble, I think we saw this, John, at the Catholic Crypto Conference that Matt put up there, that they were laughing about the @ symbol. Like, why would I ever send something to someone with the .com email address? People are like, that's crazy. Or David Letterman laughing at Bill Gates about like, why would we ever use the internet? We have the radio. And there was just laughter in the room. Or Y2K. We thought the internet was going to crash everything because it didn't have the number 2000. And I think we're having those moments right now with blockchain technology. And I always tell people it's nothing to be scared of. It's something that can make things more efficient, have less cost. It's not going to replace, it's not some crazy hey, it's going to replace everything. Everyone's going to be out of jobs. Oh my God. No, that's just not true, right? It just makes things more efficient. And instead of having applications on our phone, we'll have decentralized applications. So nothing will change in the way in which we use things. It's just that things, just like in life, are getting more efficient. The technology is getting better. We can prove ownership. And it makes me feel more comfortable as a Catholic, say I do want to invest in, one of the projects Carl and I are working on within Africa, is Namibia. Like if we're going to build affordable housing in Namibia, and I send money to that location, I probably want to know that that money is actually going to the house. Now with blockchain, we can see that transaction happen in real time. We can see that transaction actually get ownership, and that's why it's really important what Carl's working on as well is the identity domain, right? The identity to understand who you're transacting with. Now, do I think the technology is completely evolved? No. It's like 1995, if you remember when we had to download 10 different things to listen to a basketball broadcast. That's where it is now, but it's going to get better. And I'm sure Carl has lifetimes of stories of, it's a new technology, but it's good. It's very efficient. And if people have doubts about it, all I would say is sit down, read about the tech and learn about it. And I think you'll go, wow, okay, this could be pretty useful. Will it be useful for every industry? No, but nothing ever is, right? But it is useful for maybe cross-border transactions or real estate where things can be a little bit more cost efficient. Or if I donate overseas, I know where that money is actually going to. So it really is just about ownership on the internet and being able to prove it.
Carl, anything to add to that?
No, I think it's exactly right. It's an extraordinarily exciting time. And of course, I could have said that about so many different times over the last 30, 35 years that I've been blessed to be involved in. But I really like where we're taking the tech and doing super positive things, including using tokenization to decentralize ownership of real estate, which is just spectacular. When you think about how many generations of people have been shut out of home ownership, maybe because they had no collateral, had no down payment, had no credit history, couldn't demonstrate credit worthiness. All of a sudden, with a lot of the tech that we're focused on, you'll be able to put these things in people's hands. And even if it's very decentralized ownership, only a portion of their residence that they actually own, it's something that can become collateralized over time and ultimately give them an opportunity for economic growth and generational wealth.
Any other technology initiatives you guys driving that are worth mentioning? Something we haven't covered so far.
No, I think we hit the highlights. Certainly the Crescent Pay token, the Akudis game, MC identity solutions, really unique ways to provide people with identity verification. Those are the key ones.
Let's pivot to the social impact then, because I've talked to each of you guys about some of the projects you have going on in different parts of our nation and the world. Namibia just came up a second ago. Talk to us about what you guys are doing to give back, to serve humanity, and to make the world better.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here, right? We're actually looking at this now is opening up ambassador programs with Catholic schools. So some of the schools we want to reveal yet, but we are working with a couple of Catholic universities and Catholic high schools that they become an ambassador of Crescent, and help us get more followers and individuals to come in, and we can grant them tokens as donations. First responders, I think, is phenomenal. First responders campaign. You sign up as a first responder. We're going to release that in the next couple of weeks, and you become part of a sweepstakes just to get airdropped a token of ours. We just recently we're going to roll out by the end of the year a debit card for Crescent. That same organization represents VetCoin and the veterans card. So we see ourselves working with veterans in the future. And then I think, look, social impact's a big part of who Carl and I are, right? Not only do we want to work on real estate tokenization in places like New Jersey and New York, like I said, we were, sponsors at Blockchain Africa. We were part of the Catholic Crypto Conference. We went to the Young Catholic Professionals Network. Carl was a mentor and gave back to young Catholics on how to further their own career, right? So we're always looking for ways to work with students, social impact, whether that's affordable housing in Africa, South America, some poorer parts of our country here in the US, to veterans, to first responders. And then students are a core of who we are. Carl's a little humble. Carl's also a professor at Fordham, and teaches. So we're always working with students and wanting to almost pay it forward. Because I think about my own life, there's no way I could be where I am right now unless people helped me throughout the years. And I want to be mindful that I had that help through the years, that to pay it forward. And I think, Jesus and the apostles would do the same, right? Pay it forward. Like, have that, take a chance to have a 1 minute, 5 minute, 10-minute conversation, and that might have real impact. So social impact comes in the way of not only the asset impact, whether it's real estate or affordable housing, but the social impact of in-person interactions, between human beings. Because at the end of the day, we are human, and we have to remember that. So,
philosophical question, if I could. I was talking one time with our mutual friend Matt Pinto about the pantheon of emerging technology and the church's interface with it, and I asked if there was anyone that gave him some concern. If there's one that this technology is just inherently immoral. It's not something I want to get into. He really struggled. Ultimately, we agreed that human cloning would probably be an example of something that we should probably stay away from. I imagine you guys probably agree with that. But are we leaving anything out? I mean, I think all three of us agree that generally speaking, technology is neither good nor bad. It's what you do with it, and the development of technology is probably good, and it's something that we should invest more energy in. Is there any emerging technology that kind of gives you guys pause? You're like, hey, I'm not so sure about this. This isn't something that we should be getting into.
I think I would just focus on the need to always think about the individual and that individual's personal data protection and privacy. And just realizing that as we go forward, so much about all of us is going to be gleaned through data aggregation, artificial intelligence, all types of things. But at the end of the day, the individual is sacred, and people's personal data and privacy needs to be protected. And we certainly don't want to expose young people to things that are not right for them to be seeing, right? So, I grew up in the world of the PG theater, but now the theater is on your phone. So we got to find a way to kind of make sure that tech is used in the right way, and that young people especially are not exposed to it in a bad way. And also that people don't become so ultra dependent on it. I love to tell people that I memorized so many people's phone numbers because I didn't have an iPhone that they were all stuck in. So that there's some benefit to actually keeping things in your head. And there's still no substitute for actually being out in the woods and hearing birds sing. The Oculus headset is great, but actually walking in the woods is really nice too.
Karl, I want to drill down on that a little bit. Just the I guess the policing of technology. I mean, you indicated that you do believe that technology should be limited from access to children, for instance. Certain technology is not appropriate for children to use. Certain technology might not be appropriate for anyone to use. Who does that policing? I mean, is that an appropriate role for government? Is that something that our emerging industry should take personal responsibility for, a hybrid of both? I mean, how would you characterize who's going to handle that regulatory side?
Yeah, probably the best thing is to have it in the hands of individual families. Ideally there would be tools, and there are on laptops, phones, and other devices that just allow parents to have just the right level of screening capabilities to make sure that just not anything is accessible.
Yeah, I like that. Eddie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think we have to be, look, we got to be wary of, and this is actually a term that's been used in the church the last 10, 15 years, is I think the globalization of superficiality. Yeah. I think we got to be very careful about things that are fake. I think we have to be very careful of mob rule, to be honest. I think we got to be very careful of, I think the superficiality can be tough, right? I think there was I think months ago, there was a deep fake with Pope Francis wearing a jacket, right? And everyone thought that was real, right? So I think we need to be careful about what's fake and what's not. I think we need to be mindful of the realities of who's using this tech and for what reasons. Now, am I going to say one tech is bad for everyone? No, I'm not going to say that one thing is bad, but I will say that we need the right people behind it. And I think as the church, it is our responsibility to ask questions. I think we should ask questions around ethics. I think I'm sure everyone here knows a lot of priests, and I'm sure they have a lot of philosophical insight on a lot of things, right? I think we would all agree on that, and that's a good thing. And I think we just need to ask questions of usage and how it's being used, and not also, I don't think we should jump to conclusions right away. I think we need to really think and sit back and not let the technology be judges of us, but us be the judges of technology. I think that's important. Like we can't let technology run our life, and that's what Carl said on dependency. That we got to be careful, right? Like I think it's and I think it's honestly up to our generation, because we didn't really grow up with this, right? So we know what it was like. It's like Carl said, to memorize iPhones. I remember taking out the dialer and spinning it, right? Or like looking at things, or gateway computers and the Saved by the Bell cell phone, right? So there was all these big clunky tech, and it forced us to be human beings to one another. And I don't. That's what kind of scares me, is I don't want to lose the human in us and sacrifice that humanity for superficial reasons in technology. So look, we can have all these stopgaps with government or regulatory or however, but I agree with Carl that it's going to come down to the family and the individual, because you're not going to be able to police everything anyway. It's almost impossible. So I think families should be more intentional to one another. We should be intentional about what happens, and then not jump to conclusions, because the one thing I worry about is technology being weaponized for social achievement in some sort of way, right? We don't want that to happen, no matter who it is, and I think, I won't say one technology, but I think as overall as a society, we're still young in the life cycle of this. Like I said, 16 years on the smartphone, we're still trying to figure it out. And I think that's okay. But I think we still need to ask those moral questions, those philosophical questions, those Catholic questions, ethics. Do we need councils of ethics for AI? Do we need do we need policing on social media platforms? I'm not sure, right? So I think we just need to be mindful of being dependent on this. But I won't nail it down to one person. And I think, how do we combat that is we should educate folks younger, just educate folks younger, have intentional conversations, rely on the family. And I think we can really, really use this stuff for good. I really think there's a hopeful future for technology, whether blockchain, AI, or others. But it's going to come down to how we use it, I think.
Yeah, quick comment from Eddie and Carl on something, and we're almost at the end of our time, so I want to get this out and then get on to a couple other things. But last week, a very prominent New York City man turned 100, Henry Kissinger, and it's interesting. Henry Kissinger is 100 years old, and he still talks. This guy's sharp as a tack. I mean, it's amazing, how he still can think about things so deeply and communicate them so well. It's really impressive. And of course, his life in scholarship and in high level intellectual pursuits is pretty remarkable. Anyway, they asked him what he's worried about. He said AI. He thinks AI should be treated like like it's a weapon of mass destruction. He's very concerned that AI could lead to the end of humanity. He's very overt about that. Anyway, it just kind of struck me. Do you share those concerns about artificial intelligence, or do you think Dr. Kissinger is maybe taking it a little too far?
No, I think like anything else, we really need to step back and think about how it's being used. And I come back to data protection and privacy, and just making sure that individuals' rights are not being violated with how data is gleaned from them, how it's aggregated, how it's used. I think these things are really important. But you can look back through all the centuries. Every new tech has people warning of potential evil that could occur, right? And then you step back and you evaluate it and you figure out how to use it properly. And that's what we need to do here with AI as well.
Yeah, well said. Hey, guys, question, switching gears a little bit, just in terms of your life as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of viewers and listeners to the show that, would love to do what you guys are doing. Be out there, kind of working on their own, pursuing their own dreams and visions. But they just don't feel like they can make it work. Hey, like I got a salary to replace. I got children to feed. I've never done this before. What if it doesn't work out? What would you say to that viewer out there right now that's, considering making that leap into the world of entrepreneurship like you guys have done? What would be your advice and counsel to them?
Yeah, real briefly, I would say it is a leap of faith. There is no question about it. I think Eddie would agree that, it's not for the faint of heart. You have a lot to stomach. It's incredibly hard work. Some things work out so phenomenally well, you can't believe it. Some things are so disappointing, you also can't believe it. But you have to be able to persevere. And it's not easy, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I think you just have to do it, right? That's what I would say. I've heard famous stories of folks like, hey, I'm not sure if I want to do this or not. I think you just have to do it at some point, right? Like you have to cross the line and do it. And I think most people are afraid to pick up the phone and ask, or they're afraid to turn on the computer and type an email out. I think you need to just sometimes act and do it. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy in any way, form, or shape. I failed so many times over the years, and some things have worked, and a lot of things have not. Right? 9 out of 10 startups fail, so it's very difficult. But what I would suggest, a couple things. One, just do it. You got to find out for yourself. And two, I would say try to find people that have done it before and have conversations with them. Get some insight. That's the one thing I regret that I didn't do early on is find somebody who's done it before. And I'm not talking about somebody who is 10 years ahead of you and who's a billionaire. Find someone who started a company 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Hey, what were your challenges in that first month? Right. And I think you'll learn some real things, and that'll prevent some pitfalls.
I love that. And another thing I want to get your read on too is you guys go very hard in your work as entrepreneurs. I know that you put crazy amounts of time and energy and mental focus into everything you're doing. You work extremely hard, but I know at your core you're both just great family men. You love your wives, you love your family. Eddie, I've heard you talk about your father and your other close relatives. How do you balance being a successful entrepreneur and going as hard as you guys do with everything you're doing professionally with just being a great family member?
You just kind of keep everything in perspective and focus on the moment, focus on what you're doing at hand, whether it's furthering your company or quizzing your daughter on her homework, right? All of these things are important and you need to focus on them. And yeah, I was super blessed in my life that I was able to be really involved with my kids. I coached them in high level baseball, was an adult leader in the Boy Scouts. My two sons are Eagle Scouts. My daughter involved in all kinds of great things. I've also been able to join her on. You have to make time for those things. And for me, living in the city has been key because I haven't had a big commute. That time savings. Think about how many hours a lot of people spend commuting. I've been very blessed not to have to worry about that.
Anyway,
Yeah, I think just being intentional. I think exactly what Carl's saying. You'll go through a 16-hour day, and then you have to go, hang out with your family or be with your family. And I think understand that they're two different worlds, and it's good for me to have as a support system. You gotta be intentional in everything that you do. And if you just look at it that way, you can really find a good work-life balance. I used to be old me, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, would just, you work all the time and then you leave the family behind. And I found that I do much better when there's actually a real balance there, right? So I don't believe in the cliche work all like a million hours in a day and forget about your family. Like if you don't do that, you won't be successful. I don't think that's true. I think you need to have a good work-life balance, and I wouldn't substitute that time with my family over anything, right? And I think it's important to have that mix, and you'll be much better off for it. You'll perform much better in work. You'll have healthier relationships, and I think that's how I would approach it.
and Karl, a quick follow up to you. In terms of how you would rank the valuable moments in your life, the great feelings in your life, the scouting, the coaching, the time with your daughter. Where does that fall in your top five or whatever?
They're right up there. I tell people, when I was at the Young Catholic Professionals event in Dallas a few weeks ago, somebody looked at my LinkedIn and they said, "Wow, you've had a really varied career. What are you most proud of?" And I said, "I've been married 23 years to the love of my life, and we've raised three amazing kids." And that'll always be top of the list.
Gosh, I
And
love it.
and thankfully they have some interest in what Dad does, especially the video game.
Yeah,
so
I bet.
there's a lot of overlap.
I love it. Well, gentlemen, we're at the end of our time. Before I close out, though, drop, I guess, website, social media, any way that our viewers and listeners continue the conversation and engage with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so I'll start with, if you want to find out about our token, go to crescite.org. Crescite.org is where you can find out all about our token and how the token works and who we work with. acutusgame.com is where you can find out about the Acutus game itself. And then Karl, for the identity, it's mc5id.com, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Karl, did Eddie cover it all, or?
He got it.
Okay. Excellent.
Nice
Well,
broadcast news style. Good job, Eddie. Thanks.
indeed, Eddie, you got this. So, gentlemen, this has been so much fun. We've been talking to Karl Kilb and Eddie Cullen, Catholic entrepreneurs from New York City, doing all kinds of interesting stuff at the intersection of faith, finance, and technology. This has been the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association and presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We'll see you next time. God bless. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.